If originally it was three categories, it was an employee office of Attorney General, it was an employee of the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, and it was an employee of the Disability Determination Services, we're converting to an employee of any public agency under the amendment, specifically in line 33 through 34. The residency thing is a separate and apart. So I have to ask, what is a public agency as anticipated or intended in this legislation through you?
Representative Blumenthal.
Through you, Mr. Speaker. One moment, I'm just pulling up the definition so I can report it accurately to the good representative. So under the relevant statute, public agency means any executive, administrative, or legislative office of the state or any political subdivision of the state, and any state or town agency, any department, institution, bureau, board, commission, authority, or official of the state or of any city, town, borough, municipal corporation, school district, regional district, or other political subdivision of the state, including any committee of or created by any such office, subdivision, agency, department, institution, bureau, board, commission, authority, or official, and also includes any judicial office, official, or body or committee thereof, but only with respect to its administrative functions and for the purposes of this subparagraph. Judicial office includes, but is not limited to, the Division of Public Defender Services. Through you.
Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, which proves my point. It is a significant expansion from where we started, so we'll drill down further. We just learned that a public agency is an agency affiliated with our towns because they are subdivisions of the state. We have election workers, for instance, that are hired on election day to provide services and to make sure that our voting processes are honest, accurate, those kinds of things. So am I to understand that this amendment, which it greatly expands these people, would expand to municipal election workers through you?
Representative Blumenthal.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that's correct. I believe they'd have to be an actual employee of the municipality or some subdivision of it. Through you.
Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is that based upon? Because election workers are paid on election day. Is there some sort of qualifying correlative statute that confines here? So I guess the appropriate question is, where is the definition of employee as anticipated with regard to this legislation through you?
Representative Blumenthal.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I believe that employee, while there is no explicit definition in the statutes, would be the traditional legal definition of employee that we find in the common law and elsewhere as under applicable statutes, and would involve someone who had a more definite an indefinite or longer-term relationship with the municipality or subdivision or other state agency, and was subject to control in general in the course of that employment by that municipality, subdivision, or state agency. Through you.
Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess the answer is there is no statute. It is left for interpretation. And the concern, Mr. Speaker, is, you know, sometimes as a result of nefarious activities during elections, lawsuits occur. Sometimes people bring what are known as mandamus actions, asking an official to do something, not a discretionary duty, but something that they are required to do. You know, a moderator or something like that. They don't work at town hall. They would get served at their home. And protecting that information is going to preclude individuals from being able to bring those types of actions, because there is no exemption. In the amendment, language that did not appear in the original underlying it greatly expands, and it clearly says any other employee of a public agency, except when residency is a condition or a term of such person's employment. So obviously a moderator at a local polling place, their residency is not conditioned. A moderator can be any elector from that town. So now somebody feels that there was something egregious that happened with an election. And we know in these cases the timing is very key. You have to act very quickly. In fact, I think there was a case that we had right here in Connecticut, the last election, where they said the Supreme Court said because the action wasn't filed within 3 days of the election, that there was no standing. So now just think, somebody wants to bring one of these actions. They say, well, I'd like to know where the moderator lives so that I can get them served with these papers and I can get justice from our courts. And the response is, I can't give you that information because the legislature passed this law. That's not fair. I can understand where bad things happen. I can understand where there may be a level of protection. When we go down these roads, we must be very careful, which brings me to another area of questioning. You know, a lot of our land records are online. A lot of times you'll see an article, somebody's appointed to some board or some commission. They serve on, let's say, the FOI commission. It says, John Smith hails from Wethersfield. Well, you can go into the town hall, right to the computer, find out where they live. It's part of open, free government. Am I to understand that if this legislation was to pass, that we are going to require our municipalities to ascertain who falls under this and to excise the town records so that freedom of information doesn't allow this to happen? I ask that question through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Blumenthal.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, the answer is no. This exemption only applies to home addresses found in an individual employee's personnel file. As a result, it only applies to employees who have a personnel file, and it only applies to requests that will be applicable to a personnel file. Through you.
Representative Fishbein.
No, well, I must point out the language that I'm looking at, particularly in lines 6 and 7, it says no public agency may disclose under the Freedom of Information Act from its personnel, medical, or similar files the residential address of these persons. They're in possession of the information. Those are documents that the town has. So I must ask, where is the definition of similar files? Through you.
Representative Blumenthal.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, there are files that are similar to personnel or medical files. And for the sake of legislative intent, to answer the good representative's question, land records would not be similar files. Through you.
Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that sort of brings us full circle, because the legislation before us precludes, it ostensibly looks to protect these individuals from their addresses being disclosed, and that is a laudable cause. But I point out that you can walk into any town hall and get this information. So if we're really looking to protect these people, then protect these people. But this doesn't do it. This is unclear, it's murky, and is not a good way to go about this. So I'm going to have to oppose the amendment because that's the sea change that is made here, and I hope that everybody understands why.